Hi, Terry Lynn Arnold here, and I thought it'd be easier to make a little video because my phone is blowing up from people saying, hey, did you hear that inflammatory breast cancer finally got an ICD-10 code? Well, that's not true. And let me tell you what's happened. And I want to tell you some good things that are happening, but I want to also explain how this misunderstanding came about. And this is a perfect example how AI can go wrong. Apparently somebody was Googling something, and what AI does is it collects known information and puts it all in one spot, sometimes what looks like a legitimate article, but it is not a legitimate article. Inflammatory breast cancer did not get an ICD-10 code. And by the way, those are only released in big batches every maybe 10 years or so. And so that's it. Now, so there was a misunderstanding with good intentions. And if you've seen screenshots, I can promise you it's not real. And also, too, the headline isn't necessarily related to the article. What you will see is a number of a code that talks about metaplastic, neoplasm, breast, blah, blah, blah. And it talks about male and female and all this kind of stuff. And they combined all this information about inflammatory breast cancer. Again, AI gone wrong. And again, I know these things because I'm not on the committee that's trying to make this happen, but I'm working with a lot of people that are. And I just was in a meeting today with Dr. Wendy Woodward at MD Anderson for an IBC Patient Advocacy Forum. Some good folks were there. And at the end of the meeting, she mentioned one of the really big breakthroughs that's happened about inflammatory breast cancer is recently Susan G. Komen, along with some other organizations, put together basically a think tank to have what they call a matrix to help diagnose. And let me tell you why inflammatory can't have a code. And I'm trying to do this efficiently, but it's a big topic. First of all, we know that IBC has a look. And they don't think that's subjective. They want some kind of test that says, basically, you're pregnant or you're not pregnant. Nothing subjective. We don't have a test like that can be used worldwide. You will often hear that an MRI is an excellent test and doesn't miss IBC. And that's generically considered to be true. But not every country does MRIs. And it doesn't even mean they're third world countries, just a lot of countries would rather do a different kind of test. So until we can get one test that's literally available worldwide, that code will be almost impossible to get. So what some people did, when we didn't get a code back in, I think, 2017 or 18, when the last codes were issued, Susan G. Komen and some other organizations got together to make what they call a rubrics or matrix to have, certain boxes. If you check this off, and this many were checked off, you must consider IBC as a diagnosis. That has gotten some good traction. That took 4 years in the making. It was released at the end of last year. It is the closest we've gotten to a code, and maybe one day, it might even be not for 10 years, if ever, we can have a code. That's a big deal. Another thing that's come out is MD Anderson released an algorithm because they've had the largest patient volume with the first dedicated clinic opened for inflammatory breast cancer in 2006. They have studied all those patients. By the way, I was patient number 97 in the first 100 cohort, where they studied them. And there's literally an algorithm. Do this, do that, treat this. If this didn't work, do that. Or if they're pregnant, do this, whatever. These are two really big deal tools. You can find the Komen algorithm or scoring method on their webpage. I think it's on the IBC Network page too, but it is something they did create. We want to give them proper credit. And also the MD Anderson algorithm is on MD Anderson's website, but you can also readily find that on the IBC Network website. So like I said, there's been a little confusion, good intentions. I'm sorry this video is almost 4 minutes long because it's not an easy conversation. But if you can share, there is not an ICD-10 code for inflammatory breast cancer. Again, perfect example of AI going wrong. And I know there's also screenshots going around of an agenda where it was brought up. An agenda is not a decision. So right now there's not a code. All the more reason to get behind what we're doing with the IBC Network, or maybe another organization that you really think well of that's in the IBC space. Although I must admit, that's not a very crowded space. We needed more people helping because we're getting some stuff done, and that is good. So again, sorry to pop anybody's bubble. We don't have one. There's not one coming soon, but do know what tools are out there because they do matter, and share them. And if you're ever in doubt, you're always welcome to contact the IBC Network, because I can promise you, anything new that's coming down the pipe, we're talking about it. You can trust our information. Hope always.